Hello, my name is Alain Caron, and I'm here to introduce my new Markbass signature amp, the Combo 121 Lite. My story with Markbass goes back a long way. I heard about this company a long time ago, and I heard all kinds of good things about this company. Very advanced technology, and the sound of it was incredible. So I met Marco in Rome about 5 years ago. And then a few months after, we met again at the NAMM show in Anaheim. And then Marco offered me to work with him and his group of engineers to develop a signature amp. I was very thrilled and then very honored to be offered to do that. And I told him right away what I had in mind, what would be the best amplifier for me, what I would like to see in it. And I felt right away he's open-minded, and I felt he was really interested in what I was saying. So I thought it was the right group of people to work with. So right after that, a few months after, I went to the company in Italy, and then we started to work on different ideas, different prototypes, actually many different prototypes. And then we came up with this final product here that I'm really happy, the Combo 121 Lite. And then I'll tell you a bit more in detail what's in it. The reason we decided to go by amp, actually there are many different reasons. The first one is that we wanted to have a very wide frequency response, a full frequency response, and very clear. And then the bi-amp configuration allows that. We went through and we tried many different components. First of all, the tweeter is a very high fidelity, it's a hi-fi tweeter. The reason for that is when you, for example, slap, okay, you have the fundamental of the note, but you also have a lot of upper harmonics that you want to hear, and especially the attack is very, very high. So we want to be able to hear that. And then we did the same thing for the 12-inch speaker, which is made by the company BNC, which has, been made making all the speakers for Markbass for many years, from the beginning actually. And then they designed a special speaker for us, and then Marco, kept telling them, we want to have this and this and this. For the ones who knows Marco, he knows what he wants. So up to the point we agreed and said that's the right one. If you notice when you play it, don't worry if the speaker moves a lot. It's designed for it. We call it the excursion. So the speaker moves a lot and can take, that's the reason, one of the reasons it can take so much power. It moves a lot of air, has a low frequency response, and also deliver all the low mid-range frequencies. Also, the second reason we have a bi-amp. All the new amps on the market today, most of them actually, would have what we call a limiter to protect the components. When you crank it up and you play real loud, you want the amplifier to stop at a certain point, not to break the components. So with a bi-amp system, we have two different limiters, a limiter for the tweeter and a different limiter set up at the different frequencies for the 12-inch speaker. So when you slap, again, for example, the top frequencies going through the tweeter, the limiter will be active and letting all the low frequencies go through the 12-inch speakers. And the opposite, when you play the low B and play real loud, the limiter of the 12 inches will be active, but still the upper frequencies will go freely. So you have the impression of having a lot more power, a lot more headroom, and then you don't have this frustrating feeling of hitting the limiter all the time. So it's a lot more fun to play. Okay, now let's take a look at the front panel of the Combo 121 Lite. First of all, obviously you have the input, the 1/4-inch input, and then you have the gain, you know, your input gain. Then right next to it you have a little light here. It's the clip light. So when you set up your input volume, obviously when the light blits, it's time to go back a little bit. And then right next to it you see there's another light and then a little switch here. It's a mute switch. Very, very useful when you live or in studio. You can mute your input. And then very nice feature, you have a foot switch here. It's a dual switcher. And then when you hit that switch here, you see the light goes on and off, so you can control your mute switch right there. And then you have the EQ section. You have the lows set up at 40 Hertz. You have the low mid-range set up at 380. You have the high mid set up at 800. And then you have the highs, which is kind of a shelf with a peak at 10K. And then you have the VLE, which is the vintage loudspeaker emulator. It emulates an old speaker, vintage speaker where you can cut the eyes. And then also for the ones who are not crazy about the tweeter, you can, dial it down a little bit. So it emulates a vintage amplifier. And then you have the VPF here, which is the variable pre-shape filter. What it does, it increases a little bit the lows and the highs, and then makes a cut in the low mid-range at 380. Here next to it you have this little plug here, which is an aux in, where you can plug in your iPod to practice or to play with, or whatever you want to insert there. Next to it you have a little plug here, which is your headphones. And a very cool feature about that is when you hit your mute switch, you're muting your speaker and then you're muting all the outputs, but you're not muting your headphones, so you still can hear your bass through the headphones. So if you want to practice on stage or whatever, a very cool feature. And then obviously here you have the switch for the other feature that we have, where you connect your first switch here. And then the second thing is that you mute your send and return. For example, if you have a multi-effect that's here, but you don't have a foot switch, on-off foot switch for this unit, you can turn it off, on-off using the foot switch here. And then another good thing about it is when you bypass your send and return, your bass signal is going directly to the output. So you even have a better signal by bypassing the send and return. All kinds of good features in there. Okay, so here's an example of how to use the VLE, the vintage loudspeaker emulation. For example, here I have my fretless, and on this fretless I have piezo here in the bridge, okay? And this piezo has a lot of very high frequencies. I have the same thing also on my upright bass, which I don't have here, but it's the same problem. I mean, it could be a problem or not, but if you feel it's a problem that you have too much highs, a lot of very high frequencies like noise and stuff, see, you can cut a little bit of the highs just by using the VLE filter, which acts and react very differently than the EQ. So listen to it. More. You see, you get rid of some high frequencies, and then you have the feeling of playing through a big 15-inch speaker. You see, for me, it's a little bit too much. So we'll go back a little bit. So now I have just the right amount. Okay, now we'll show you the back panel of the Combo 121 Lite. At the left hand side here, you see the AC connector. Next to it you have the fan. Here it's this big connector here connects to the tweeter and the 12-inch speaker. And since this biamp configuration, you won't be able to connect that to an external speaker. You don't have an external speaker connector because of this biamp configuration. But you have here a 1/4-inch line-out output that allows you to connect this combo to another combo or as many as you want, or any other power amp. Here you have the tuner out. Next to that you have the send and return connectors. That allows you to connect to an external effect of your choice. And then remember, at the front panel you have a connector that allows you to, with the foot switch possibility, to turn this send and return on or off, which is a very good feature, because when your signal, your send and return is off, your signal goes directly to the output for a better quality sound. Here, next to that, you have those two switches here, the pre and post EQ and pre and post master. So that allows you to send your EQ to the XLR output or not. Pre-EQ, your EQ won't affect the signal sent to the output, and post-EQ, your EQ will affect the sound of your output. Same thing for the master. Pre-master, you can turn your master, it won't affect the signal you send here, and then post-master, your master level will also affect your signal through the XLR output. Here you have the ground lift switch and then the XLR connector. Another very clever feature is, look at this. You know, when the sound engineer goes and say, okay, I need to plug, your XLR or whatever. I say, hey, it's too deep, I don't see where I'm going. I say, hey guys, look at this. You open it up, and then you see where you're going, plug it in, put it back, and there you go. Isn't it cool? Now I'll show you the different configuration or options you have for live and studio situation. First of all, the most important thing is your input level, your gain level. This is the level you send, obviously, to the amplifier, but also this is the level you send through your XLR output. So this is exactly the same thing as when you play in a studio, recording studio, you plug your bass and you set up your gain level. If you go too far, it'll clip. You have some kind of a distortion. If you want it, it's okay. But normally you want to set it up correctly so you have a clean, pure sound. After that, you have the EQ section. Normally, personally, I never use EQ. I like the sound of my bass. Sounds great in studio. And this amplifier allows me to hear the sound of the bass. That's what I love about it. So, but sometimes you get on a stage where you have a bad frequency, a natural bad frequency in the room. So you can either cut it. No, most of the time you cut EQ, you don't boost, unless you want it. And then sometimes it's too bright, or so you have control over that. And then by choosing the post and pre-EQ that we explained earlier, this EQ can be only for you on the stage without affecting what it is you're sending to the PA. The next thing I've learned over the years, a couple of tricks. Depending on the kind of stage you're playing at, the kind of venues you're playing at. If you put your amplifier directly on the floor, you have what we call a coupling, meaning that you have the floor will spread the low frequencies throughout the room. So you have the impression when you play that you have more low end and the amplifier sounds bigger. It's a good thing sometimes when you play in a small club and then the only bass amplification that you have is your amplifier, not using a PA. You put it on the floor and then your bass will go into the entire room. Very, nice. But sometimes when you play on a stage or even in a club, here we have Markbass made something really, really cool. It's called the Mark stand. Look at this. It's very small, very easy to carry around, to travel with. And then you can put it this way here with Velcro, so you can tilt your amplifier this way. I like that very, very much. Because you still have some coupling with the floor, so your bass will still sound big. Not as big as when it's totally on the floor, but you still have this coupling effect. But with this configuration, you'll hear the tweeter a lot better and then a little bit more clarity. And also, that allows you to move around in front of your amp a little bit more. And since all Markbass has such a wide range of projection, so that leaves you a lot of room to walk around in front of your amp and still hear the tweeter and the clarity of the speaker perfectly. Also, I like that very, very much on a big stage. This is the way I use it most of the time. And then when you play on a big stage with, a big PA, sometimes if your amp is on the floor, as we had it before, and then you feel like your bass is boomy, I suggest you either take it totally off the floor, where you lose completely the coupling floor effect, or you use the Mark stand, so you have half of the effect, and then you still feel the low end from the PA. And then the sound engineer will really like that, because you won't play as loud on stage, and then your sound will be mixed a lot better with the PA for the audience. So those are the configuration I suggest, and try it for yourself. You'll hear the difference. Now we're going to talk about using the amplifier in studio in a recording environment. Some guys like to plug their bass into the DI directly into the recorder, or use your amp, because the direct XLR output is a great DI. So you have a couple of options here that I can tell you and propose. First thing, obviously set up your gain input properly, as I explained earlier. And you have a couple of different choices here, I'll tell you. First of all, your EQ section, you can either choose to send it to the recorder, to the tape or computer, or not. If your bass, the sound of your bass, you're used to use, a certain EQ to it, and then you decided to send it to the engineer or the recorder, you have this option by using this post and pre switch at the back of the amplifier. So either send you EQ or not. You have the choice. And also the same thing for the master control. All right? Sometimes, I remember the first time I played in studio through headphones, I felt that the bass sounded a little thin. So I kept asking the engineer, could you put more lows to it? And then that was a little bit complicated sometimes. So I found a trick to go around that. You bring your amp, and then you either put your amp next to you, just a little bit like that, and then you put just a little bit of your amps, and then you have all the low end, and it makes you feel the bass. Even you can sit on it. So you just put a little bit of your amp, you sit on it, and you have a great feeling. And then by having the choice of having the master control pre or post to the DI out, so you won't affect your recording signal, and then you can adjust the desired volume in the studio you want. Also, remember the mute switch here? So during the recording, if you have people are talking, you want to take a break, but you still want to practice or still look at the music in front of you, you have the choice of muting your signal out and your headphone here, and then you mute your output, you put your headphones here, and you still hear yourself to practice. And then when people are ready to record, switch your headphones, unmute, and then you're ready to go. So all kinds of different features that are comes very, very handy in studio. Also, another thing, some people like to mic the amplifier to get the warmth of it's a different sound. So you have different options here. Since it's a bi-amp, you have the high frequencies coming out of the tweeter, and then the low frequencies and the mid frequencies coming out of the 12-inch speaker. You have different choice. If you don't want the tweeter, you put your microphone about here or right in the center. You get different sounds. So experiment with that. Obviously, the kind of the type of microphone you're using, and the placement is very important. If you want to have the full range, you put it right in between. And the further away you go from the amplifier, you get the full frequency response of the amplifier, but don't forget, you also mic the room you're in. So experiment with that. You place your microphone somewhere, you record a little bit, you go and listen to it, and then you find the right spot. And I personally never record the speaker enclosure. I always go direct. But I like the sound of the preamp and the DI out of the Markbass. So now it's time to show you the way I use them on stage. First of all, I always play stereo. I've been into the stereo mode for many, many years. Just by, studio experience and mixing records. A lot of people say, why do you play stereo? Bass is mono. You're totally right. But when you use an effect, like any effects, chorus, flanger, phase shifter, reverb, delay, for the one who knows who I am, you know that I've been using synthesizer on bass for years, so you can play a lot with stereo, left, right, panning things. And then I use different floor multi-effect units. For example, here I have a chorus. So the bass is mono, but the effect is stereo. So that's the reason why I use two amplifiers. To me, this is left and right, or vice versa. And then the two DIs are exactly left and right. So I tell the engineer, use stereo input, two inputs on the board, and then either pan it totally left and right, or sometimes 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, to have not such a wide effects, depending on the size of the room we're playing in. So this is the way I use it. Also, it becomes very, very handy to have the pre-post EQ, as we explained before, and also the pre-post master. So I can control my stage volume and my EQ volume on stage totally independently than what I'm sending to the PA up front. So to me, this is the perfect setup. Okay, here's another configuration for live performance. If you want to play mono and you feel you don't have enough power with one combo, and then you can use two combos. Set up this way, lineary, so you have a very wide projection. You can walk around and then your bass will go everywhere. So the way to set it up, you use your top amplifier as your main one, you plug your bass in, set up your input, and then you take the jack, a 1/4 inch line output back into the second amplifier, and then you make sure that your two pre-post little switch at the back are post EQ and post master. So That EQ will be sent to the other amplifier, and this master will control both amplifiers. So you turn your master up, you match your second amplifier to the same volume, and then when you turn this one off, or down, or up, it will be sent to both amplifiers. So you can stack 20 of them if you want. Well, at this point, there's not much more to say, except that I'm really, really happy with this amplifier, and also very honored that I've been part of the development of this great small combo. Thanks to Marco, first of all, and everybody back at the factory, all the engineers, everybody there. And give yourself a favor. Go in a store and try it. You'll be amazed how good it is. And also, don't worry, it's good for any kind of music. Because, what we had in mind is to have a great amplifier that will amplify your bass and stay true to the sound of your bass. So first of all, make sure you have the right bass, the sound of the bass that sounds the way you want, and get a great amplifier like this one. To me, it's the best one that will amplify the sound of your bass, and I'm guarantee you'll be happy with it. So, thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I really hope to see you in your cities and countries very soon. Goodbye.